Welcome back, friends. We will be starting in this lecture the soils of India, and this lecture will be divided into two parts. Initial part regarding the soils, the initial part of the soil which has to be covered in physical geography. I have not taken biogeography because this is not required for the general studies paper. But what is required is some basic information of the soil, and I will be giving you some extra information so that you can you will be able to answer any kind of a question in the soil because you will be understanding the concept of the soil. Now, before we go to the soil in India, this is what is required in the general studies paper. You should know what kind of the questions are asked in the examination, both in the preliminary examination as well as in the mains examination. So look here, I will first start with the preliminary examination. In the preliminary examination, or it is better known as the prelims examination. In the prelims examination, they will ask you some type of the questions, that is the what constitutes or the different soils in India, different soils in India. So where are they found? Where are they found? First, and if the second question, and what are they made up of? They are rich in certain minerals, or they are rich in, for example, what they constitute of, whether they are rich in potassium, nitrogen, etc., whether they are poor in nitrogen, potassium, etc., that is their composition. Is their composition. The third question which they ask you, generally not a part nowadays of geography, but I am not leaving it for any other teacher, it is more of part of an environment ecology, is that the soil erosion and degradation methods. What are the methods of soil conservation? Different types of the methods of the soil conservation. This is what they can ask you in the examination, in the preliminary examination. So focus on this part. Where are they found? It is again a conceptual part, because in this lecture itself I will explain you the distribution of the soils. Composition, it is bit factual, but again there are some concepts. Like the concept is that Indian soil is generally poor in nitrogenous fertilizers. Therefore, India is the largest importer of urea. Means we import urea. Urea government also gives subsidy because Indian soils as such, they are poor in nitrogen. Some of the soils are rich in humus. Some of the soils are poor in humus. And this application part, which soils are rich, which soils are poor, etc. This you will have to apply a little bit of a geomorphology. And the methods of the soil conservation, it is the factual data. So the factual data here, I will give you some of the methods. You can look it on your own. What are the different methods? But generally, examination does not go too much deep into it. Now, the mains examination question in the soils in India are again the question for the mains examination for the different soils in India is regarding distribution of soil in India. A simple question can come. The distribution of soil in India. The second question which can come in this part is regarding give the distribution of black soil or alluvial soil or the laterite soil. That is, specific soil can be asked for a short note. For a short note. And the third question which can come here is again related to environment ecology, that is the method of soil erosion, method of soil conservation, and the problem of desertification, etc. in India, that is the concept of soil erosion and conservation. So you can see in the soil chapter, there is a kind of a convergence, or it is kind of a sameness in the questions which have been asked in the prelims and the mains examination. So let us focus on what is asked in the examination and let us study the chapter of the soil. Now, in the chapter of the rocks and in the chapter of weathering, we learned that the rocks are broken down due to weathering and erosion into the smaller particles. Now, this weathered particles, which is a mixture of rocks, which is a mixture of the top layer of the rocks plus some organic as well as inorganic matter, is known as soil. So, what is the soil? The loose top layer of the rock is known as soil. So, let us study what is the soil. So, the soil, as you can see, the soil is the top thin layer of the earth's crust, comprising of the rock particles, that is non-living, so inorganic, with organic matter, that is the soil may have decayed plants, the soils may have decayed animals on it, the soils may have remains of a dead animals which have been decomposed by the bacteria, the soils may have fallen leaves which have been further decomposed by the bacteria, and thus therefore we say the soil is the thin top layer of the earth's crust, fine, comprising of a rock particles mixed with organic matter. What do you mean organic matter? The matter which has been derived from living beings. So that is known as an organic matter. So the soil, you remember, consists of organic plus inorganic matter. It consists of both organic and inorganic matter. And inorganic matter. Consists of both organic and inorganic matter. What is an inorganic matter here? The rock particles are the inorganic matter. Now, sometimes a simple question is asked, what is the study of soil known as? The study of the soil is pedology, is the study of the soils. So, I'll come to the second point now. The pedogenesis is the process of soil formation that includes variety of processes such as weathering, leaching, calcification, etc. So you have to remember that weathering, erosion, leaching, etc. These processes will result into formation of different types of the soil. Now come to the next slide. There are different types of the soils. Based on the rock particles, based on the climate, the soils will be of a different type. Some of the soil you go down and take out, some of the soil will be very dry. The particles which the soil which make the soil, these particles will be big. Sometimes the particles will be of a very, very fine size, while sometimes the particles will be of the medium size. As per the moisture content, what does the particle size determine? The size of the particles determine whether water, whether air can pass through the soils. As per the moisture content, some soils are sticky soils, some soils are like a sandy soils, some soils are not sticky at all, while some soils are in middle. And therefore, on this basis, you can see here, we divide the soil into the sandy soil, clayey soil, and the loamy soil, In this, you will also learn that which soil is considered best for agriculture. So, take down some of the important points. We will do this. Now, if the soil contains greater proportion of particles, it is made up of big particles, then it is known as a sandy soil. Now, the sandy soil are made of big particles, means it is made up of granules that contain small rock and mineral particles. Obviously, because there is less moisture in it, less weight, because sand does not have moisture. That is why wraith or sand can be easily blown by the wind. Because of less moisture, the sandy soils tend to be light, well aerated, means air can easily pass, and dry. So the bigger particles, which soil has the biggest of all particles? It is the sandy soil. These are granular. These are small, having small rock and mineral particles. They tend to be light, well aerated, and dry. If the proportion of fine particles, that is extremely fine soil, is relatively higher, then it is known as a clay soil. That means the fine particles is higher, is known as clay soil. So what you have to remember, clay is made up of fine particles. So that is why, because it is made up of extremely fine particles, water pot of a water, or matka, what is known as, it can hold water because the finer particles in the clay does not allow the water to pass. So it is made up of fine particles. Remember, the finest of the soil is clay soil, and therefore when we were kids, all of us were used to play with the clay toys. How we used to play? We used to make that clay wet and moist so that it could be molded in any shape. So if the portion of the fine particles is relatively higher, then it is known as clay soils. Clay soils, particles are smaller, tightly packed, and therefore hold more water than the sandy soils. They will hold more water. Neither very dry soil nor very wet soil is good for plants. Neither it is good for human beings. If you want to, if which soil is best, बहुत ही dry या बहुत ही wet, anything in excess is bad. So उसमें बीच में एक the middle soil is good. And what is this middle soil? It is in the last point. If the amount of large and fine particles is about the same, then the soil is known as a loamy soil. That means the loamy soil has about the same amount of particles, then it is known as a loamy soil. Loamy soil is a mixture of sand, clay, and silt. Now this is very important from your examination point of view. That is, what is the loamy soil made up of? Let me wear the glasses because lights are too much. So see, the loamy soil is made up of mixture of sand, clay, and silt. So this is very important line from your examination point of view, that it is made up of sand, clay, and silt. What is a silt? Silt is found on the river bed. A very fine soil which is caused due to river erosion is known as silt, and the loamy soil is made up of all sand, some particles of clay, and some particles of silt. Because of this, it has the right water holding capacity, and if it has the right water holding capacity, we get the answer in the third point, that it is the best soil for plant growth. It is the best soil for plant growth. So sandy soil, extremely dry soil; clay soil, very moist soil. We require a better middle soil, that is the loamy soil, which is a mixture of sand, clay, and finer soil, that is the silt. And because it has the right water holding capacity, we say that this soil is considered best for the growth of plants. Now these are the three types of soil. This diagram is just for you so that you can get an idea. So you can see the sandy soil is made up of big particles. On the other hand, at the extreme, the clay soil is made up of very fine particles. So sandy soil, you can see in the diagram, it is dry. Clay soil is wet. It is like a molds. Why? Because it is wet. While the loamy soil is a mixture of both big particles and the smaller particles. And you can say it is neither very wet nor very dry. Instead, the molds in that loamy soil is somewhat smaller, and therefore plants can easily breathe in it. The minerals can be easily transported. It does not get waterlogged, and therefore loamy soil is considered best for agriculture. Loamy soil is considered best for agriculture. Now, if we study the soil is made up of different layers. If this is the top layer where we will live, where there are plants, etc., and the inside layer, that is the bedrock, is present, which is inaccessible to us because it is buried deep inside. So from the top to the bottom inside, the soils is made up of different layers. And what are these layers of the soil? It is the O layer. Uske baad it is the A layer. After that it is the E layer, it is B layer, C layer, and the R layer. So what is it? For example, if this is where we'll stay, if this is our house, if this is the land, these are the human beings, then inside the soils will be made up of O layer. After that we have the A layer. After that we have the E layer. After that we have the B layer. After that we have the C layer, and the last layer will be R layer. Obviously the O layer is not at all thick. O layer is what, when we walk on the soil, we see dried plants or the plant leaf, decomposed organic matter. We cannot see the dead bodies because the organic matter is decomposed, but we can see partially decomposed leaf, etc. So that layer is known as O layer. Why the word O layer comes from? O layer is the word. O layer it is called because it is made from the organic matter. That means the organic matter means the matter which has been again derived from the living beings. And because it is made up of an organic matter, generally the organic matter, what falls from the top is the leaves of the plant. The organic matter adds an important constituent in the soil, and this constituent of a soil is known as humus. So remember for your examination that the O layer is made up of humus. O layer is the uppermost layer. It is an organic layer. After that O layer is the top soil. It is the A layer. So the next question in the preliminary examination will be, which layer is known as the top soil? Which layer is known as the top soil? At the top we have O layer, but O layer is not the constituent of soil. It is actually what? Organic matter which is there on the top of the earth. So the leaves and etc. are falling, and this is the top layer, but actual soil starts from the A layer, and therefore the A layer is known as the topsoil. This topsoil consists of humus, living creatures, and also inorganic minerals. This is important. It consists of humus, living creatures, and inorganic minerals. So if the question comes, earthworm is found in which layer? A layer, C layer, or R layer? Living creature, earthworm, it is found in the A layer. Which soil is known as the topsoil? A layer is known as the topsoil. So repeat with me. A layer consists of both organic and inorganic matter. What does it consist of? Both organic and inorganic matter. A layer. Which layer is known as the topsoil? A layer is the topsoil. A layer is topsoil. Now, in this, the top layer which is known as the A layer, sometimes the particles which are there in the top layer, that is the A layer, this A layer soil is made up of different particles. This all are washed by very heavy rainfall by the water, and it is carried downwards. Water will go deep inside, it is carried downwards. So when the minerals which are carried downwards, they get accumulated in the transition layer which lies between the A layer, that is this is the A layer, and between the B layer. This is the organic layer, that is the top layer. So such a zone is known as an E layer. Such a zone which consists of the leached materials is known as the E layer. That is, the materials come downward from the A layer. So E layer is known as elevated horizon. It is known as an elevated horizon. So you can see, remember, E stands for elevated horizon. It's simple to remember. You will have to use such tricks because the UPSC examination is even the factual information UPSC is highly demanding. So remember, the E layer is elevated layer. What E layer is? E horizon, it is famous for which process? Leaching process. What is the process of leaching? We will come to that in this lecture itself. That is, it is a zone of leaching where the materials move downwards. It is the zone of leaching. Leaching means the process when the material moves downwards. So the E layer is a zone of leaching where the material is moved downwards. Now then is the next layer, that is the B layer. What is this B layer known as? This B layer is known as a subsoil. The B layer is known as a subsoil. If the A layer is known as a topsoil, because remember it is the topmost alphabet, so topsoil. A layer के बाद E layer, उसके बाद अल्फाबेट में A के बाद B आता है, B layer, sub alpha, that is after A, after the top it will be subsoil. Now the subsoils consist of iron, aluminum, humic compounds are accumulated and clay is leached down from A and E horizons. So for examination you should remember this part is generally asked, the structure of the soil, this is generally asked only for the preliminary examination. So remember B layer is known as a subsoil. B layer is known as a subsoil. Now from where have this all soils, that is the A layer, E layer, B layer have been derived? They have been derived from the parent rock material. The rock was broken down to form the soil. The rock which is lying now below, it was broken down to form the soil. So this rock which was lying below, this C layer was broken down into small particles to form soil. On that soil, on the topmost layer, leaves fell, dead animals were buried, decomposed to form O layer. But now the origin of the soil occurred due to breaking down of the rock, and therefore the C layer is known as a parent material. It is known as a parent material. Now it consists of the broken down rock, that is, it is made up of the weathered parent material, in which there is a partial breakdown of inorganic matter. See here, there is no organic matter here. There is no organic matter in the C layer. So O layer, organic layer, E layer, after that A layer is a topsoil. A ke baad it is E layer, zone of elevation, that is zone of leaching. B layer is the subsoil where the leached material will accumulate. C layer is the parent rock. And after that parent rock, if this all are broken, the downmost layer is not broken. The downmost layer is a big thick rock. It is not broken. It is an continuous rock which has not been broken down. Now this layer which has not been broken down is known as an R layer, and it lies deep inside the earth, therefore it is known as an bed rock. It is not broken down. See, that is why I have shown this, I have made this design to show that, so that you can remember in the examination that it has not been broken down. It has not been broken down. It is known as a bed rock. So the R layer is the innermost layer, inaccessible. So the UPSC can ask you a simple question: which layer is inaccessible? It is the R layer, bedrock, which lies at the bottom. It is the unbroken layer, and therefore it is in a compact form, and therefore I have drawn the structure of a rock like a well jointed rock is there. So this is how the structure of the soil is. Let us revise it again, so that so that you won't have to spend the time again. Repeat with me. The topmost layer of the soil is the O layer. It is made up of organic matter, means living matters, that which have been derived from living things. Not living matters, but which have been derived from living things. So litter, मतलब जो पत्ते गिर जाते हैं, the leaves which fall is known as litter. Litter, where it will be present? The O layer. O है इसलिए organic है, इसलिए the name is O layer. After that it is the A layer, which is known as subsoil. Does it consist of organic as well as inorganic matter? Yes, you can see humus, living creatures are organic matter, while inorganic minerals is also present. That is, it is a mixture of ऊपर का organic matter which has fallen down and नीचे का rock which has been broken. After that is the elevation, zone of elevation, that is the zone of leaching. After that is the subsoil, that is the B layer. It is the subsoil, that is the B layer. It is generally made up of inorganic matter, that is the iron, aluminum compounds are accumulated, and then after that it is the C layer, that is the parent rock, inorganic matter, and bed rock is the lowermost, which is not broken down. So this is how the structure of the soil is. Now what are the different factors which affect the formation of a soil? Different factors which affect the formation of the soil. The first factor is the parent material. That means the rock structure from where the soil is derived. I will explain you how we just know the factors which affect the formation of the soil, and then we will study how the different factors which have given rise to different soils in India. So the first factor is the parent material. Parent material means the rocks from which the soil is formed is known as a parent material. The rocks from where the soil is formed is known as a parent material. The second factor which is there is the relief. Relief means slope. Relief means slope. Now you consider these two types of a slope. One is a steeper slope while one is an extremely flat land or a gentler slope. Now where if soil is red in color, where will be the thickness of the soil more? In the slope or in the flat land? On the slope, all the soil will move down, and therefore on the slope there will be thin layer of the soil which is present. But all this moved soil which has been removed under gravity will get accumulated on the flat land here, and therefore यहाँ पे you will have thick layer of a soil. You will have a thick layer of the soil. So remember, the soil won't be well developed on the steep slopes. On steep slopes, there will be thin layer of the soil, not a very well developed soil, while there will be proper thick layer, deep soil on the gentle slopes or on the plain land. And this is what we know by relief. यहाँ पे the soil will be not properly developed. There will be thin layer of the soil. यहाँ पे there will be exactly opposite. On the gentle slope, there will be exactly opposite, that there will be thick layer of the soil. Therefore, we have written that soil erosion on a steep slope is rampant. Rampant means it is common, it is more, and therefore it hinders the soil formation. You can see it here. You can see it here, that it hinders the soil formation. Example is Chambal ravines. Ravines is a deep erosion in the soil and the higher reaches of the Himalayas. So in the Himalayas, if the question comes, is the soil mature, properly developed? When something gets mature, when it is a properly developed, then only a person gets mature. The same you can apply to the soil. So immature soils in the Himalayas, because they are not properly developed. You can see from my diagram itself, that is the red color soils. These are not on the slopes of the mountains. These are not properly developed. While the areas of low relief, that is this part, have or gentle slope generally experience deposition and have deep soils. So Indo-Gangetic plain, deep soils. Himalayan regions, thin soils. Deep soils in this example is the Indo-Gangetic plain. Let me change the ink color so that there won't be any confusion. So deep soils in the Indo-Gangetic plain. This is how what is our factor. Now let us come to the next slide, that is the single most important factor for the soil formation. The single most important factor for the soil formation. As I have written here, climate is the single most important factor in the soil formation. Why single most important factor? Because the climate will determine the effectiveness of the weathering of the parent material, the quantity of water seeping through the soil, and the types of microorganisms which are present in the soil. So that is why the climate is the single most important factor in the formation of a soil. Because consider these two areas which are having a same kind of a soil. For example, this is one area which I have marked shaded, which I am marking shaded, and this is the other area which is unshaded. Now consider in the shaded region there is a very heavy rainfall. Consider in the shaded region there is a very heavy rainfall throughout the year. Because there is a very heavy rainfall throughout the year, What will be present here? Extremely dense vegetation will be present in this region. Extremely dense vegetation will be present in this region. On other hand, this is a region which does not get rainfall, that this is the desert region. It's a desert region because no vegetation is, nothing can grow here. Now initially both these regions had a same soil, but यहाँ पे more evaporation, there will be more evaporation in this region. More evaporation in this region. While in this region there will be very heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall. And therefore the process of leaching will operate. Process of leaching will operate. The process of leaching operates in this region. Therefore, over the period, both the soils will be of a different characteristics. On other hand, if I take one more this region which has a normal rainfall, यहाँ पे you will find still different type of soil. Therefore, we are saying climate determines the type and effectiveness of weathering of the parent material. In the regions of very heavy rainfall, there will be more weathering as compared to the region of dry climate, because in the region of a rainfall, both chemical and physical weathering will operate. While in the region of a dry climate, desert climate, in this climate, only which chemical or physical? Only chemical weathering के लिए you require water. Revise your geomorphology. Physical weathering will operate. Only in the physical weathering will operate, and that will, the amount of weathering will determine the quantity of water seeping through the soil, how much water seeps through the soil, and that in turn will determine the type of microorganisms which are present in it. And microorganisms will again determine whether the soil can be weathered or not. Remember, earthworms are known as the friend of farmers. Why? Because they take part in organic weathering. So, example I have given you. Example in arid and semi-arid regions, evaporation always exceeds precipitation. There is little vegetation, and the soil, because there is little vegetation, that means the soil will lack organic matter. And what do we call organic matter? As humus content. Therefore, the soil badly lacks humus content, and hence the soil will be of light color. That means the students, I am saying here, the soil badly lacks humus content, and therefore the soils are compulsory, invariably of a lighter color. That means, can you conclude from this statement that the humus content gives darker color to the soils? Yes. Now that is the beauty of revising again and again. Maybe in the first reading, you could not, you could not determine what humus content does. But if you revise it again and again, you will see that how to read between the lines. This is called reading between the lines, that is concluding from the content which is given. And that can come only with revision. If you revise your NCERTs again and again, you will start reading between the lines from NCERTs. And then you will realize that maximum paper will come out of the NCERT. Because see, I will be taking, no doubt, NCERTs in physical geography are not very good in geography part. Physical geography NCERT has given very less, but there is one NCERT which is a standard 12th NCERT, that is land and people. It is a land and people. Out of all the NCERTs, you can, for the other NCERTs, you can depend on my lectures, but do this NCERT very properly, because this NCERT has most of the factual data, and the factual data you cannot learn. You will have to devise ways for yourself to learn the factual data. In the future lectures, I will tell what to focus from that area. So in the arid and semi-arid regions, the evaporation always exceeds precipitation. Therefore, there is little vegetation. And because there is a little vegetation, the soils lack humus. And because they lack humus, they are invariably of light color. So you are having a different color. On the other hand, in the areas of heavy rainfall and high temperature, the soils are red in color, or they are known as lateritic soils. They are known as a lateritic soil. Why they are known as a lateritic soils? Because the process which operates here is the process of leaching. Because the process of leaching operates in this region. Now let us see what is this process of leaching. Let us see what is this process of leaching. Now consider this as the layer of a soil. This is we know that the soils are of different layers. Consider there is a top layer of the soil. This top layer of the soil is made up of different minerals. Is made up of different minerals. Now in the regions of very heavy rainfall, in the regions where there is a heavy rain, because of heavy rainfall and alternate wet and dry climate, what happens in some of the regions, the water will seep through the soil, and when the water will go through the soil, it will carry all the minerals from the top layer of the soil, which can be dissolved in water, and it will accumulate in this lower layer. Because of the very heavy rainfall, the water soluble minerals in the soil, the different type of minerals are washed away by the water. It is carried away by the water and deposited in the lower layer. While the top layer may only two minerals remain, the top layer remains rich only in iron, because it cannot be easily dissolved in water, and aluminum. The top layer remains only rich in iron and aluminum, while silica is removed from the soil. Silica and other minerals are removed from the soil, removed from top layer of the soil. From the top layer of the soil, and hence the topmost layer consists of only iron and aluminum. Now, because of the presence of iron, this soil becomes reddish in color. This soil becomes reddish in color. Therefore, these are known as a red soil. This becomes the color of the soil is red. It is not known as red soil now, but it is known as a lateritic soil. Leaching gives rise to lateritic soil. You remember L, say L. That is leaching. Leaching gives rise to lateritic soil. Leaching will give rise to an lateritic soil. L, say leaching, and L, lateritic, you remember. So why they are known as lateritic soil? Word lateritic means bricks. The word laterite means bricks. Now this soil, because of the extreme heat, this occurs in the regions of heavy rainfall and high temperature. Heavy rainfall will remove most of the minerals from the top layer of the soil, while high temperature will bake the soil, and therefore the soil becomes very hard, and therefore the soil is deficient in all kind of nutrition. It is a poor soil. Poor soil means it is not rich in nutrients. It is deficient in nutrients, and it can be used only for, because of its hardness, it can be used only for making bricks, and therefore this soil is known as lateritic soil. It is used for only making bricks, and therefore it is known as an lateritic soil. So you see how two different types of soil, even if my face is not seen, it is fine. You just see that how two different types of soil are formed because of the process of climate. एक में the same kind of a soil may give rise to a light color soil, while other soil will give rise to the leached soil. Remember, leached soil is poor in nutrients, and this is one of the commonly asked question in UPSC examination, that is the leaching gives rise to rich soil or poor soil. You remember, it gives rise to poor soil. यहाँ पे nothing can grow except for cashew nut and coconut. You will see उसका application in India. Now let us come to the next slide. This is what I have written it here. So the heavy rainfall during the rainy season washes the upper soil and leaches lime and silica. What does it remove? Leaches means removes. It removes lime and silica, and therefore the soils rich in iron oxide and aluminum compounds are left behind. Now, in environment ecology section, you must have seen that the soils consist of macronutrients and micronutrients. When there is a combination of micro and micronutrients, then only the soil will be good. For example, even we as human beings, we require some major minerals, we require some vitamins, and we require some proper proportion of zinc, etc. Only iron, if we keep on eating, it is not good for our health. We will require some quantity of iron. We will require some quantity of sulfur. We will require some quantity of zinc, etc. The soil also requires. Similarly, the soils also require the nutrients in different proportions. Leaching removes lime and silica from the soil, and the soil left behind is only rich in iron oxide and aluminum compounds, and this soil is known as a leach soil. So the presence of iron gives red color to these soils, and due to alternate wet and dry climates, the blazing sun bakes the soil and they resemble a brick. Therefore, they are known as laterite, because laterite literally means brick. Literally means brick. So you can see I have attached a photo of a laterite soil, and you can see how they are made into different bricks. So the climate is an important factor. Just revise with me again. Climate is the single most factor. So if the question comes in the UPSC, which is the single most factor, it is the climate. Climate determines the effectiveness of a weathering, and therefore different kind of the soils can be formed. What is the process of leaching? The process of leaching means the upper layer of the soil is washed in lime and silica. What remains? Iron, aluminum. FeAl, leaching. You remember. FeAl. Fe stands for iron, Al stands for aluminum, and LeCH, iron, leaching. Field leaching. Okay, that means it is rich only in iron and aluminum. The next factor which is there is a natural vegetation. Now the natural vegetation may add humus. If the area is rich in natural vegetation, there will be more humus in the soil. If more humus makes the soil acidic, and therefore the natural vegetation sometimes helps in protection of the soil, and therefore deeper soils can be formed. This natural vegetation to some extent helps in the breaking down of the soil. How does the natural vegetation helps in the breaking down of the soil? If this is a tree, roots go deep inside the ground and they break the soil. There are different microorganisms also present, different minerals, different acids given by the trees through xylem and phloem. Do in biology what is xylem and what is phloem. So that means tree yaad aaya, isliye I am telling you the question. These are the common questions which are asked in the examination. So the natural vegetation is a result of natural vegetation. Actually, how is the natural vegetation formed? Natural vegetation is result of relief. that is whether it is a steep slope, normal slope, climate, rainfall, etc. So how does the natural vegetation act? The decayed leaf material adds much needed humus to the soil. Humus increases the fertility of the soil. So natural vegetation hai, then it must be, it can be, it will result into fertile soil. So these are the factors which affect the soil formation. Now the next I have written somewhat in this box which is there. This is only for preliminary examination. It's only for the preliminary examination. That is, in ancient times in India, the soils were divided into two main groups. That is, one soil was known as Urvara soil, which was a fertile soil, and the other soil was known as Usara soil, which was means the sterile soil. Urvara soils and the Usara soil. So you remember, isme how to remember? Remember, both of them start with U, Urvara and Usara. And remember, Usara जिसमें S है, it means sterile soil. Sterile means non-fertile soils. Non-fertile soils. Sterile soils means non-fertile soils. So this is the introduction to the soils, and in the next lecture we'll learn about the different types of soils in India. That is, in the next lecture we'll study of the different types of the soil. Let us revise again the factors. Natural vegetation, इससे पहले उर्वरा, usara. Urvara is fertile, usara as sterile. Sterile means not fertile. Then the laterite soil due to the process of leaching. Climate is the most important factor. अगर vegetation नहीं है, because the climate does not support the vegetation, then there will be less humus. Such soils will be lighter in color. Parent material, originally from where the soil comes, and the different layers of the soil: O, A, E, B, C, R. O is the organic layer, A is the topsoil, E is the zone of elevation. Zone of elevation means यहाँ पे leaching will occur. B is the subsoil, C consists of the parent material, and R consists of the bedrock. Don't don't rely only on that. You will revise on the basis of video. Draw this diagram in your book and revise it. And the three kinds of soil: sandy soil, the dry soil, clay soil is the wet soil, while the loamy soil is the middle soil best suited for cultivation. So this is all about the soils. We'll meet in the next lecture when we start the soils in India. Till the time, thank you very much.